Crazy. New Comic Book Day edition. I am here with Brother Marcus and my hot dog Paul out of the hot dog region.
Yes, sir.
Brother Marcus, it was a big week for New Comic Book Day. Yes. I know you had to scale it down to the one that we actually both read this, that you're going to talk about in just a moment. But we had Batman 130. We had new Gargoyle series come out. We had a one-shot of Thanos, Death Notes coming out of the new Grombeck Thor title.
Right.
But let's start. Miles Morales, man, is back.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. New writer, totally new creative team. Actually, in fact, yes. So, Miles Morales, #1. This is the new ongoing series. Saladin Ahmed is no longer part of the book. He's moving on. And this particular ongoing series actually is writer Cody Ziegler and Federico Vicente.
Wow.
Yeah,
Very
Italian.
So, and I tell you what, he's a talented man because the story is awesome. The art is amazing. It's very, there's a lot of action cinematic style art in it, very fast, very Ryan Otley style, I would say.
I love the artwork.
Yeah, it's just great detail. Everything is phenomenal. And for those who don't know, Cody Ziegler is actually the writer who did the Spider-Punk miniseries. So he kind of, I guess that was kind of his audition, if you will, because I think that was probably the first time I saw him actually in some sort of comic book that recently at least. And I think a lot of these guys are starting to get mentored in coming up into like the whole Stormbreaker, in that Stormbreaker series, a sort of a realm that or circle that Marvel has created for their up and coming artists and creators, and they're getting nurtured very well. Because this is a fantastic issue. This first issue, you start right away with Miles going head to head with a familiar rogue, if you will, and then he goes right into school, and we see sort of kind of his relationship dynamics with his friends and classmates in school. Not much on origin on this first issue, which is nice.
That's good.
Yeah, and then you go right into another actual. I think this particular adversary was introduced during Saladin Ahmed's run in issue 25, if I remember correctly. So right around his clone saga. His own clone saga, not Peter. Saga. Yeah, not Peter Parker. So that's actually kind of one of the reasons why I stopped reading Ahmed's run was because I didn't want basically everything that went on with Peter Parker to be basically carbon copied over to Miles Morales. I wanted him to be treated like an actual his own character.
Right.
So so I stopped, and then so with this first issue was very refreshing because it looks like he's getting ready to get his own set of rogues and adversaries to deal with within his own life sphere. So very, very cool. There's a ton of covers out there. We ordered heavily at our store, and we're almost out, actually. And we're surprised at how fast it went, and people are just jumping on it. It's really good. So if you guys are not familiar with Miles Morales or you want to get into him, this is a good time to start. This is a good
one of the good things about when Marvel keeps doing like their resets, kind of thing, is that there's always a good jumping on point.
Right.
They keep that legacy number up there, so they're keeping track of the old overall number in this series.
Right.
But this is a really good jumping on point. Talked to Marcus yesterday at the shop about it, and it was probably the first or second thing I read. And I thought it was great. Like you mentioned, the cinematic, really good storytelling. The artwork is ridiculous. If you like Miles Morales as a character, this is a great jumping on point for starting. And like you said, they're getting some rogues kind of starting to develop. I kind of want them to not have so much connectivity with Peter.
Me too.
But I want him to have his own thing.
Right.
And I think that's what they're going to try to establish. And I'm excited for what Ziegler has. But there was a lot of stuff yesterday. But Paul's going to tell us about a trade from something that I think we've all read. Back not too far back.
Not too far back.
Good stuff.
A couple years.
Yeah.
So before I introduce it, I'm going to talk about who it's written by, why I read it, and then what it's about a little bit. So it's written by Grant Morrison, who is, I've kind of realized over the past couple of years, is unequivocally my favorite writer. My favorite Superman story is Grant Morrison. My favorite Batman story is Grant Morrison. My favorite Green Lantern story, Green Lantern Intergalactic Lawman, is Grant Morrison. He just has a way of telling stories that are fun, keeps them interesting. You don't feel like anybody could be writing it.
Right.
And that happens a lot in comic books. Right. You're like, well, anybody could write this. This could be Wade, this could be whomever, whatever. But no, Morrison has a very distinct voice, and he's not afraid to make things kind of crazy and kind of convoluted in a way that comics aren't usually. And this comic has art by Liam Sharp. He does a lot of painting and stuff like that, and it's super dynamic. It's probably about half of the reason I love the comic so much, because it's just so dynamic. The colors are incredible. The blacks are super deep. The greens stand out like never before. And just, it's a roller coaster ride from start to finish. It is the closest thing in any comic I've read to a police procedural, but in space. I would say a good comparison for it would be Men in Black in a movie. I think that's a great comparison for it.
Yeah, that's good.
I think I think Will Smith's character isn't a bad comparison for Hal Jordan in this comic. He's off the hinge. He's going to do what he needs to do to get it done. He's going to do it his way. He doesn't care. And I just think that's what's so incredible about Hal Jordan. Hal Jordan is my favorite Green Lantern. I think he is the coolest. I think he's the most fun. I think he's the most interesting. I generally speaking really enjoy the characters who are like very idealistic. And Hal is, but Hal also is, he doesn't care what you think. He's going to do what he wants to do. He's going to do what he needs to do, and he's going to do it his way. And that's what this comic is. There's spectacular like set pieces and just interesting things happen that you don't see coming. And there's like a God type character. He looks like the Catholic Christian God or whatever, but he's not, and he gets played out for that. And he's like stealing Earth, and it shrinks, and it's goofy, but it's incredible. It's a lot of fun. Hal Jordan has to go to this auction where he bought the planet Earth and be like, you can't take this planet. You cannot take the planet. You can't have this. You cannot do this. And it's just, that's the type of story it is. And also it gets towards the end where Hal has to go and save a hero, and he has to infiltrate himself into a group of kind of not other space cops, but very similar. And he has to do some things that don't look good on the surface. He kills somebody, and he's like, oh, he deserved it. He was fighting back type stuff. And you're like, whoa, I don't know if I like that. And later on in the story, you find out what happened and why it happened. And it's just a very fun story. And you get stuff like Grant Morrison's brain and Liam Sharp's art. You get a Green Lantern who has a volcano for a head. And he rumbles every time he talks, and he looks incredibly cool, and he explodes when he gets mad. And it's just a really fun read. And it's everything I think of when I think of a Green Lantern and what it means to be a space cop.
Yeah.
I can remember when Liam Sharp and Grant Morrison were first announced to be on this book, that I was talking to somebody, I think it was at Maximum, might have been one of the guys over at Torpedo, was giving me a little pushback, like I don't really like Liam Sharp, and I don't know if I think he's great in this, and I think he did a great job with it's like you said, it's like bizarre stuff. There's a Green Lantern with a volcano head, and it's just a lot of the stuff is like bigger than life. And Liam Sharp, it has almost like a Frank Quietly kind of influence to him, almost to that sense. But everything that Liam Sharp has done, I've always at first been kind of like I had reservations about, but his art is great, and he does a great job. And this was a really good book.
And I think that's a true testament to Grant Morrison's writing too, because it seems like he can literally work with any artist.
Yeah.
And it still will have some sort of impact, and even if you don't even like the artist, it's one of those things where his writing is so strong that you can overlook it. Because like I'm not that big of a fan of Frank Quitely at all, but We Three,
All-Star Superman,
there's some titles there, and even like I just picked up a Flex Mentallo, which is part of the whole Doom Patrol universe. I'll be reading that too. That's him as well, and some of that stuff just really fits well. Oh, even in his new X-Men as well, his new X-Men that he did with Grant, actually.
Morrison just has a way of telling stories that it's a lot of comic books and even just movies, shows is very straightforward. And it's very by the numbers. This is the plot. This is how we're going to lay it out. And that's not how Grant Morrison tells a story. He's going to layer in interesting little quirks. And also, he's not going to tell it in, for lack of a better term, a linear way. You're going to see something happen. A bunch of other stuff is going to happen. And then the revelation is going to happen for why that happened earlier. And then you're going to have to kind of piece. It's like, I think this could seem like a slight. It could seem like, if you're into this kind of thing, it's like putting together a puzzle. Reading his writing. I think the Batman comic his Batman run is another perfect example of that. And it's funny because before this came out, I never would have thought, oh, Grant Morrison needs to write Hal Jordan. And then this came out and I was like, Grant Morrison is perfect for Hal Jordan. Like, this is literally the character he could write and make his own. And his brain and just the way he tells stories works perfectly for it because space is weird. Hal Jordan is crazy. He's gotten up to a bunch of crazy stuff. And I think it's just a perfect fit.
Right, absolutely. And I mean, I like to think of Grant tends to appeal to the same sort of intellectual sensibilities that Christopher Nolan does for me.
I think that's
in
fair.
films. You know,
they're both my favorites.
Yeah, he can be entertaining, but also he can push a lot of weird concepts, or even just, you know, concepts that you may have never even thought to consider at you, and make something that, you know, that is very inviting and entertaining as a story. Absolute Multiversity, which came out this week, actually. Multiversity actually is one of those where it kind of just lays out for everyone who's interested in DC multiverse lore, what it is, and then basically everything from that series has been the foundation from everything that's been released since. So that's always a starting point for those, just to shout out there for you guys.
I think,
and that's Grant Morrison.
He's the best. There's no one better. That's for sure. He's on par with just about anybody you could bring up. And on top of him telling an interesting and layered and interconnected puzzle of a story, he gets characters. Hal Jordan in this does not feel like Batman in Batman. Superman in Superman does not feel like that. They feel like completely different characters. And you can't always say that for comic book writers. A lot of time it's hey, this guy is a superhero and he's going to do superhero things. That's not Grant Morrison, and that's why I love him so much.
I mean, you had mentioned the Miles Morales Spider-Man book that dropped this week. We had the end of the first arc for Chip Zdarsky with Batman. The end of the fail-safe storyline. It's incredible. The finale is amazing.
I'm a little behind. Don't tell me.
It's ridiculous. I'm not going to spoil that for you.
No.
If you are a fan of the Disney cartoon Gargoyles, they released an ongoing Gargoyles series. Dynamite put that out. There's 47 covers. There's a lot. There's not that many, but there's a lot. And next month, Dynamite is also going to be putting out a Darkwing Duck series that I plan to go hard in the paint for. I can't wait. I can't wait for that. That's gonna be fun. Nakayama is doing variant covers for that, so it's gonna be good. And also the Fantastic Four, the new ongoing series that you mentioned.
Oh man,
number 1 was great. Read that, and I think I got a second printing of that. But I read the issue 2 of the new Fantastic Four, Ryan North. It's really good. And again, we're talking about a starting point for Miles Morales. They're restarting Fantastic Four again, and they're kind of featuring Paul, like each of the characters before they bring them together. I think with the 4th issue, they're going to bring them together.
That's fun.
That's what it's looking like.
So
that's good.
Really good storytelling. There's a lot of comics. Get out to your LCS.
Do it.
And check out some books. Go get some stuff to read. We appreciate you guys taking the time to hang out with us tonight. And we'll talk to you again next week with more comics to go over. And lots and lots of books.
Oh yeah,
I got lots of stuff to read.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Guys, we'll talk to you soon. Okay, fellers.